All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Offside's draft special number 2, sitting down with Peter Harling. You may know him from Dobber or across the NHL spectrum. He takes care of the prospects. We had to have him on to talk about the upcoming NHL draft. Peter, how's your evening going?
It's going great, man. Thanks for having me on. Love talking a little hockey.
Not a worry at all. And of course, riding shotgun as always is my co-host Dylan Fournier. Follow him on TikTok at D4. Dylan, how's your night going, buddy?
It's going. It's good Sunday. Had a blast this weekend. Happy Canada Day to all of those in Canada, and happy 4th of July to those in the U.S.
There you go. Yeah, coming around the corner. All right. Right here, we are brought to you by Boxing Rock Brewing Co.'s Puck Off Lagerdale, the big beer for the big game. No big games going on right now, but of course, the big draft coming up. Grab yourself a couple cold ones, kick back and watch your favorite team draft, maybe the next superstar. And I'll ask you right out of the gate, Peter, Mr. Hughes over in Montreal, is he doing a little gamesmanship here? Being a former agent, he knows how to push and pull different buttons. Is he now trying to do that as a GM, being non-committal to drafting Shane Wright or where they're going to go or what they're going to do, trying to maybe influence some movement throughout the market, even though he probably knows what he's going to do?
I would think so. I mean, that's his job, right? He's one of the GMs that's really familiar with Logan Cooley. I think he was feeling a lot of pressure to be the hometown team drafting and to select Shane Wright number 1 overall. But I think some of that pressure might have been alleviated after Bob McKenzie published his final rankings, and he didn't have either Shane Wright or Logan Cooley number 1. He had Juraj Slafkovsky as the top ranked prospect. So that kind of gives him carte blanche to do whatever he wants with that top pick, pick any one of those players. And I think the court of public opinion will be a lot more understanding with whichever way he goes now.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. So I'll ask you forthright. Do you think the Montreal Canadiens now, with that pressure off, decide to make a move here to bring in someone, to do something different, to expedite whatever process Ken Hughes has? Or is he committed to kind of doing this the right way, the ground up? Because you also hear the rumblings of the moves they may make with Petrie and Gallagher and Josh Anderson. And of course, now Christian Dvorak's name has also popped up. So which way would you see him more leaning towards here?
Well, what I would like to see happen, because I'm going to be there, is I would like to see them make a blockbuster trade on draft day and trade Josh Anderson and maybe some other assets to New Jersey for the 2nd overall pick and pick 1-2. Wouldn't that be crazy? Crazy town.
It would be crazy.
That would blow the roof off the building. And of course, your first live draft in 2 seasons, to do something that huge and also move out Josh Anderson's money, that may get everybody talking. But I mean, there's a lot of rumblings about New Jersey wanting to get JT Miller for that 2nd overall pick. So it depends on which way they want to go. But I mean, Montreal picking 1-2. As a Leaf fan, that may not be something we want to see down the road.
No. But hey, the silver lining here is this is not the one of the better drafts we've seen in recent years. So,
well, yeah, that was one of my questions too for you. Is you look at this draft here. There's so much movement that could happen with even not only the top 10 but the top 20. I look at guys that have gone from as high as 10 now up to 37. Depending on whose list you're looking at any given time, everybody's got somebody ranked differently, but it's usually within 3 or 4 picks of what other people have on their list. But yeah, this one here, there's so much movement. I mean, it just begs for trades. And if a team wants a guy, like even at the Leafs, I guess Frankie Nazar is a guy they've been kind of looking at. Maybe if they feel they need to move up, they make a deal here or there. Is there someone that's in the top 10 that you're saying, hey, this player right here should be maybe somewhere else? Depending on, I guess we'll go with Bob McKenzie's list. You look at his list and what he did, obviously helping out Montreal with that first pick there, with Slafkovsky going there. Do you see someone in that top 10 that maybe shouldn't be there in your eyes, and someone else who you think might slide into the top 10 where there's so much movement?
No, Bob's list is pretty similar to mine. There aren't too many players that are interchangeable in his top 10 too far. The only player he's got ranked in the top 10 that I didn't, that wasn't even really that close, was Marco Kasper. And I think I might be undervaluing Kasper a little bit, just because I didn't see as much of him as some of the other guys in this draft. And he's been one of those guys that had a good late push. So I might be a little bit sleepy on that player, but you certainly can't argue with Bob's list. It's compiled by NHL scouts. He polls them and he just does a consensus ranking from what they tell him. So can't really tell him he's got it wrong. It's coming from the horse's mouth, basically, right?
No, definitely. Well, one name, obviously, right now we're all watching what's happening with the Flyers. Goalie prospect there, not allowed, obviously, to come over here, and it's not looking good for his playing time or playing career, possibly for the next 2 years. By look of it, maybe being sent to Antarctica in the middle of nowhere. But there's a player, Ivan Miroshchenko, obviously, young man who battled back from being sick. Obviously, everybody still thinks he has the skills. He was a top 5 kind of draft pick before everything happened. Do you see teams being weary with him where he's playing in the MHL, maybe not selecting him in the first round, maybe waiting later in the draft, where it may not be a player that can come over and play here?
That's a really good question, man. And, it only takes one team to draft him, right?
Yep.
And there are 32 teams and several teams picking with multiple picks in the first round. So I have to think that if he does get picked in the first round, it'll be one of those teams like Seattle or Arizona or Buffalo that have multiple first round picks, can use a nice early pick and lock themselves down a player that they feel really good about. And then when they get down into like the 20s, they can say, okay, so we got another dart to throw here. Let's see if we can get another top 10 pick in the 20th here. And even if he doesn't pan out, we're not totally euchred. There's two real huge red flags on this player. One, his health. He's fighting for his life with, it's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm not a doctor, but that's not good.
No.
It sounds like he's responding really well to the treatments. He's getting treatment in Germany. And the U18 tournament this year was in Germany, so a lot of NHL writers had an opportunity to talk to him or have conversations with people there, and the word was good, right? Like he looked good, and he's skating on off days and stuff when he's not getting chemo or treatment, whatever he's getting. Again, I don't play doctor on TV even or on podcasts,
No.
but that's a pretty serious concern, right? Like who knows how that could go? But even more concerning is his passport with what's going on in Russia. The Ivan Fedotov thing it's scary, man. Like they talking about sending him to some version of Siberia military camp way up in the Arctic. He was detained for like 2 days and then he left in an ambulance.
Yeah, he's in the hospital. I think right now.
Yeah.
So, what happened there? Went in fine. He didn't come out so fine, right?
Right. Like this is like some serious stuff, but players might have, this is like going back into the early 80s where players were defecting and fearing for their life and leaving their family behind and fearing for their families and stuff. Like this is some real gangster stuff on a government level.
Yeah, it's on a scary level, and even the Philadelphia Flyers have basically said no comment. Right, they're not going to comment any further on it, and everybody's grilling Ovechkin, asking for his opinion. I know that everybody wants the biggest Russian star in the NHL to come out and say something, but at the same time, he has family there, and he doesn't want to say anything ill turn because look at what happened to Artemi Panarin. Had to leave the Rangers to take care of things to make sure everyone was okay, So yeah. It's so scary. It's so scary and touch and go. That's why I ask about Ivan. Obviously, huge skill set. We hope him the best of health, but if you can get a player like that. But then you're worried if you're going to be able to use them. And I think that obviously comes second to his health. But, yeah, the politics of things are definitely scary as well for teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows with what's going on in Russia. I do know that it would really make me very hesitant to draft Russian players. The Russian factor has been a real thing in the NHL for a while.
Yeah.
Really settled down in like the last 5 or 10 years. In the last couple of drafts I was at, some scouts were shaking their head. Like, I asked them about why is this guy falling down on the draft board? Is it because he's Russian? They're like, no, it's because he can't skate or because of this or because of that. Like the Russian thing was like, cares about that anymore. It's a thing now.
Yeah, it's back. It reared its ugly head yet again.
Do you think it'll affect how Michkov falls in next year's draft?
Yeah. Also because he's under contract there for 5 years. So regardless of the political landscape, he's not coming for 5 years, right? Like even if Russia kisses, like if, Putin gets assassinated and Russia kisses make up with the rest of the world, says, sorry, dictator, we're good now. We're good. Guys can go play hockey in North America. We won't kill their family. He's still under contract for 5 years.
Right.
Yeah. What's interesting though is the CHL import draft just happened the other day, and a bunch of Russian players were selected in that, including Miroshnichenko. He went 24th overall to team in the queue. So, maybe they know some things that we don't know. Maybe they tend to not draft players at the import draft if they haven't already had precursor conversations with their agents and their families. Said, would you be interested in coming over? And if they say no, not at all, then they don't waste an import pick on them.
Right.
True enough.
Right. It's not really a draft, the import draft. It's pretty preordained where players want to go. And then they just get selected when that team comes up. That's why you see players who are like top 10 NHL draft picks get selected in the 20s when 20 other teams passed on them, because those 20 other teams know that he's not going to play for their city for whatever reason.
Yeah.
We've seen that here with Nico Hischier here in Halifax.
Yeah.
When he came over this way. So, and obviously over here, it was so funny when he was coming this way. Everybody bubbed him as the Swiss McDavid. So,
not so much.
He was fun to watch here. I won't lie. Definitely a fun guy to watch here, but hasn't translated to the big league yet. I gotta ask you. You look at this draft here. Is there a player you have high hopes for in this draft that maybe no one is talking about as of yet? Just a guy that really has popped on your charts, or you have as a favorite, maybe even later in the draft, that really isn't garnering any attention yet?
Yeah, a couple. One of the guys, I'm not sure when he's going to go, first or second round would be my guess, but I'm really curious about Lane Hudson. I really like him, even though he's 5'8" and like 150 pounds soaking wet and holding bricks. But he's such a smart player. He's so skilled. He's so smart. And he's such a good skater. He's got such good offensive upside, and his defensive game isn't a liability either. His skating and his smarts allow him to really box out and control the gap and position players out of the danger zone. And his stick is probably one of the best in this draft class in terms of defending. And that's including guys that are like 6'7" and have a wingspan of like 12 feet. Right? Like his stick's better than those guys. He's just that smart, and he's just that skilled. He's 5'8" though, and that's a thing.
But they got listed 5'8" and a quarter, so we'll give him a little bit more. We'll give him a bump up.
There you go. Chris Peters' podcast, though, Talking Hockey Sense, he was talking about Lane Hudson, and I found one of the things I found interesting about what he had to say was that that they've had some bone doctors. I forget what the doctor term for that is, but they were thinking that he's still got a growth spurt in him, so he could gain another couple inches maybe. So 5'10" is not as bad as 5'8". It's still short, but it's not egregiously short. And then he's going to college for a couple of years, I think Boston University. So pack on an extra couple pounds of muscle, and he'll be right as rain.
Yeah, no, I never heard of that. Like, I didn't know that was something you could measure, that a person would have another possible growth spurt in them. I'm learning something here tonight, so that is that's pretty crazy. Again, just like you, I don't play a doctor on TV or on a podcast, so hearing these things is pretty cool. Who's the other guy? You said you had two guys that you were really high on. One guy that we were talking with Mark Seidel about was Mr. Height. I'm wondering if that might be somebody you're thinking about.
Yeah, he's a player that I like as well. But Logan Morrison is another player I'm really interested in watching. He just went to the Memorial Cup with Hamilton, so he led them to an OHL championship. He was named the MVP of the OHL playoffs. He's only 6 months removed from last year's draft. He's only 6 months difference in age from Brennan Hoffman, for example. He didn't play any hockey last year because of the pandemic, and then this year he had like 100-point season. Just turned 20, so I gotta think that he's played his way onto the draft board. My only question is, how high does a team draft him? Mike Agello, who covers the Leafs for Hockey Buzz, mentioned to me that that's a guy that the Leafs have some interest in, is what he's heard. That'd be all right with me. They don't have very many picks though, right? They got like a first and I think a fifth and a seventh. So
no, they got the first, Winnipeg's third, and a seventh, and that's it.
Right. So they don't have a lot of darts to throw at the board there, and I'm sure there's some young players that they like too. But if they wanted to trade down, I'm sure they could get Morrison and another player. And this is the kind of draft that would make a lot of sense to do that, right? Because the field from like 50 to 100 is really interchangeable. So, if you trade your 25th for a couple of picks in the 40 range, you could get the guy you're going to pick at 25 plus another one, depending on how things unfold, right?
I wouldn't be mad if you got the guy you're talking about, Morrison, and Hunter Height. Why not?
There you go.
Get the pair of them, right? But again, some of these names that we're talking about, from what I heard, a lot of people have Hunter Height's name on their lips, just not really out there. It's just one guy that everybody keeps asking about that keeps coming up. Obviously impressed with him. And that's now a guy that I hope the Leafs get, but obviously now with more chatter about it, you never know where he's going to go. So that's the fun thing about the draft, man. You sit and wait. But I agree with you with the Leafs. They should. And I think Kyle Dubas is huge for this. Trading that pick and turning it into 2 more picks or whatever he decides to do with it. And obviously now you have the Rasmus Sandin situation where he may become, another draft capital for them. So,
well, they've got a pretty good track record with their draft history. So, having more options isn't a bad idea when, you can make good with your draft picks. Probably they got a pretty good track record. Matthew Knies is a great example. They got him in the second round.
Yeah. We're going to ask you a couple of questions about some Leafs prospects down here in the next few minutes. Dylan, I've been hogging the spotlight here, my friend. You got some questions I know you want to ask too, so jump in, my friend. I'm a chatterbox. Let's go.
I know we were talking about Ivan earlier, and I know he's not in the draft, but in your eyes, who has the most potential in the crease of this draft?
It's not a very good draft for goaltenders. If you're in a fantasy draft and you're looking to get a goalie, find another outlet.
Okay. Good to know. I know there hasn't been much talk, and that's why I wanted to kind of ask the question.
Well, goalies are really hard to forecast, right? In the last couple of years, we've had goalies in the first round, and we've had goalies even in the second and third round. I really like Ben Goudreau. He's a player who I targeted in my fantasy draft. I got him, and I'm really happy about that. And so far, so good. But I mean, you can have guys who have first round sort of pedigree going into the draft and take 5 years to not make it. And then you got to hold on to that player for a long time, waiting, and it turns into nothing. So, goalies, and then you got to draft like this year where you don't really have any goalies that are standouts. Right. I just wouldn't bother.
Now, another question that kind of just popped into my head. I am from London. So Brett Broche, who kind of pops out to me, and I know he was on the World Juniors this year. And I know he doesn't have the height in favor of him, but I think he's had pretty good numbers in the O. How do you feel about him? Do you think he's going to get picked, or do you think he's going to sign as like a free agent or a tryout type of thing?
I don't think he'll get picked. I mean, I do like him. I think he's a good goalie. I don't think he'll get picked. I think he'll get invited to a training camp, and then from there, he'll try and play his way into a pro contract. Probably looking at an NAHL contract, and give him a year to see how he does in pro hockey. Probably in the coast, not in the AHL right away, and then go from there. Right, like if he can hold his own in the in pro hockey, cool. That's a good sign. That's a good start. Well, okay, now then maybe they would consider throwing an NHL, an ELC at him.
Right.
But that would be my prediction for how things go with him.
Awesome. Thanks. My other question is who has taken the biggest jump in ranking since the beginning of the year in your eyes?
Up or down?
Up or down. It doesn't matter, actually.
Down would be Brad Lambert.
Yep. Okay.
That's a player I was going to ask you about here in a couple seconds. Yeah.
top 3 pick going into this draft, right? A couple years ago, I was thinking, all right, so my fantasy team is kind of, I need to start thinking about maybe getting some first round picks. And I was like, at 2022 looks pretty good, right? You got Matt Savoy, you've got Shane Wright,
Yep.
Kingston Boy in my backyard. I can watch him, be really excited about that. And you got Brad Lambert. Here's 3 guys who are high caliber profiles years before their own draft year. And then, Matt Savoy's still in the top 10 conversation. He's not a top 3. But Brad Lambert, it's like, depending on who you ask, he's in the first round. He's in the top 10. He's on not a first round pick. He's on the do not draft list for some scouts. Like,
Wow.
Is that just because of attitude and effort, or?
Well, it's not because of his skating or his skill, right? Those are elite. So yeah, his compete level is questionable, and his hockey IQ is a little bit questionable as well. Very interesting. He's traded in the CHL, his CHL rights. He's an import draft player last year, played over in Europe, but his rights were traded to, I think, Seattle from Saskatoon. So that begs the question, is he agreed to go and play there? And I think that would be a really good call for him. You might think, well, he's playing pro hockey now. It'd be a step backwards to go play junior. But I think the misstep was playing him pro hockey now. He's clearly not ready. And he played on 2 different teams, and he put up similar, less than spectacular results on either of those teams, right? Send him to junior, bring him over to North America. He's going to transition real well because, he's got dual citizenship.
Yep.
So language and culture won't be a barrier for him at all. Play in a nice big city like Seattle, dominated the junior level for a year, post something around the lines of 100 points or something like that. So this is a player who, going into the draft, if he gets picked, wherever he gets picked, I have no idea where it's going to be. Like, let's say it's in the middle of the first round, right? Let's just hedge our bets and say he gets picked 16th. This is a player you can probably get in your fantasy draft in a lot later than top 10 pick. And then a year removed, his stock or his value could be that of a top 5 pick again. Right? Like, if he comes to junior, puts up 100 points, dominates at the junior level, looks really good at the World Juniors, and now because he's drafted out of Europe, he doesn't have to play another season in the dub. He can go. He can go anywhere, right? He can go to the American Hockey League. Obviously, he can go to the NHL. He can stay in junior. He can go back to Europe. All kinds of options there. So he's got the window of opportunity for him to flip this around and go and vault right back up on the charts is there for him if he's got the ability to do that, right? And that's a great league to show some consistency in scoring, right? Play with that skill level and that skating ability, put up 100 points. You got to do that consistently all season long to rack up those kind of points. So that would kind of maybe settle a lot of the concerns that hockey scouts and prospect evaluators have.
Right.
Now, with him being over and playing in Europe, do you think that this year really kind of hurt his dev? Like, where he would go over there, obviously you're talking about not having the points, not doing the things that he's probably used to doing, on such a great level. Now he has to come back and kind of remind people almost of what he did. Do you think he might take a step back or hurt his confidence, or, add fuel to the motivation factor for him?
Well, I don't know him personally, so that's hard to say. And I've heard a lot of different reports of people on him and what's gone into him having an underwhelming season over in Finland this year. So has this season hurt his development? Absolutely. He was a top 3, top 5 ranked prospect for this draft, and now we're talking about a wide range of possibilities, and pretty much none of them include top 5. Right? No one has him ranked in the top 5 at all. So yeah, I would say this season has definitely hurt his development. How he responds to that will tell you a lot about where he's going to go, right? Like a story I heard about Shane Wright is he played a round of golf with his dad, and his dad whooped his ass, and he didn't like that because he's a real competitive guy. So he spent that whole summer practicing golf when he wasn't practicing hockey, and he made him, and now he's a really good golfer. right? So you hear stories about star athletes, and that drive and that competitiveness is what makes them star athletes, right? Like I remember there's a season where Sidney Crosby was still Sid the Kid, and while he was a great NHL player on day one, right? One of the criticisms on him was he wasn't very good on faceoffs.
I remember this story.
Came back next season and he was one of the best in the league on the draw. And then the conversation turns out, yeah, well, his shot's it's not elite. It's good, but it's not elite. And then the next season it was. So, Shane Wright's like that. Sidney Crosby's like that. Is Brad Lambert? We're going to find out.
Well, that's going to be interesting too. Now, organizational wise, where do you think a good fit with him would be? Because obviously some players, you have to go to the right spot to be able to bring out the most in you, to have maybe the right eyes on you, the right people. I think of maybe a Stevie Y, and that kind of organization, where he's gone and done those kind of things. He would basically, not want to disappoint, or even Lou Lamoriello on the island. I think of those kind of hard-nosed kind of guys that would bring a guy along and want to make sure the most of what he could be is brought out. Is there an ideal organization you think that could get him, or that should get him, that can bring him to his full potential?
So what would make the needle move in the positive direction for me would be if he was drafted on a team that has a good track record of drafting and developing. So, not the Edmonton Oilers or Arizona Coyotes.
And shots fired.
And then B, a team that has not too much competition for roster spots, right? So not Los Angeles, not Ottawa, not Carolina, right? So a team that's good at drafting and developing players and has a window of opportunity for a player like that to, in a year or two, jump right up into contention for one of those NHL roster spots. Whoever that is, off the top of my head, I don't know. But that would be intriguing to me.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, there's a few teams that may come to mind. I mean, even the Toronto Maple Leafs might be a team that comes to mind. Not that they get a chance to draft him, obviously nowhere near where he's projected if he's in the middle. But if Matthew Knies somehow doesn't work out, there's a second line spot open in Toronto. But we'll talk about him in a minute. There's a lot of people frothing at the mouth for Mr. Knies. I want to ask you about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, we're a Leaf-centric kind of podcast. Drafting 25th. There's a lot of guys that are projected on people's lists. The Leafs might go for. I want to know what you think about. I think it's Rutger there, McGorty. A lot of people thinking that he may be a Leafs pick. Some people say he doesn't fit their mold, but they go for. With size, kind of a bit more slower on the foot speed. Do you see him as a guy that the Leafs would go for, or who do you think, if they keep the 25th pick, that they're gunning for?
I got McGrory a little bit higher on my rankings at 16. So if he fell to 25 when the Leafs grabbed him, I'm also a Leaf fan. That would make me super happy.
All right.
His foot speed isn't elite. It's below average for NHL. But I mean, if that's the big deficiency in a player's game, that's not the end of the world, because you can overcome that, right? Luc Robitaille did. He was not drafted because he wasn't a good enough skater, and he ended up becoming the all-time left-wing leading scorer in NHL history until Ovechkin came along. So, skating is important, but you can fix it, right? It's not like if you can't fix 5'8". If Lane Hudson is 5'8" and he doesn't grow and can't overcome that height deficiency, then you can't teach that out of him. You can't teach a player hockey IQ. You have it or you don't.
Yeah.
But you can teach skating, and if he puts in the work, that's something you can overcome.
And we've seen that too, by the way, just to jump in for a sec. We've seen that with Barb Underhill, what she's done with Leaf players, and now obviously Paul Matheson's in there, going to be the skating coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs now going forward. So definitely you can make strides with that. We look at guys like John Tavares and what they've done with him to help his strides. So definitely just wanted to jump in with that.
Some players can't figure it out. They don't ever become good skaters, and it's not for lack of trying. They just can't figure it out. But some players do. I had Pete Krupski on the DPR show a couple episodes ago, and he went over all the national team development program top 10 players with me. And when we talked about McGroarty, he was really enthusiastic about him, and he's kind of like the skating thing. He's kind of like, don't worry about that. Like, it's not the greatest, but he's fine. He's got hockey sense. He's got skill. He's got size. He's got elite competition in his game, and he compared him to the Tkachuk brothers, which
Ooh.
right?
That makes it more tantalizing right there.
Yeah, for sure. Some other players I would have in the 25 range. Miroshnichenko is 24th on my list, but I don't think Toronto would be a good fit for him because I think a team with multiple picks again would be where you want to go. Maybe Yuri Kulich. I have Brad Lambert 28th on my list. Again, that's a player who you might want to have multiple picks in the first round if you're going to pick him. But those are some names there. But trading down for the Leafs makes a lot of sense for me because at that range, I mean, all these players are darts at the board at this point, and they're all not going to be immediately insertable into your roster. So why not try to get two of them?
No, definitely. Okay. Well, that knocks two questions off my board because I was going to ask you what a need would be for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I want to ask you about some of the Leafs prospects they have now because a lot of people kind of forget what's in the system sometimes. We know about the Topi Nemelas, the Ronnie Hervanens, the Matthew Knies. Some people forget that we have a guy named Radon Amirov who is also recovering from, being sick and career-altering stuff going on there. But they have high hopes that he might come back. And some people say that if he does come back, he might crack the top six and be a guy that really tears it up. And he's also on the mend health-wise. So that's a good sign. But is there someone in the Leaf system that maybe we're not talking about that should be garnering more attention? I am going to ask your opinion on Matthew Knies here in a couple of moments. But is there anyone else that we're not really hitting on yet, but is a guy that could probably jump in within the next couple seasons?
Yeah, maybe. I think Ty Voit has got some sleepy, sneaky upside to him. And they signed a NCAA free agent this summer to an AHL contract. So I don't think he's not really part of the Leafs prospect system yet. But I think there's a good opportunity for Dryden McKay.
Yep.
Leafs goaltending is it's not very good from at any level, right?
Not yet, no.
No, I like Campbell, but he's a UFA. So, and the Leafs are in a cap situation. So I hope that they can get him back. But if they can't, then it gets pretty bleak after that. We've got Peter Mrazek, who's often injured, and when he's not, he's inconsistent. Eric Shelgren had a nice little audition in the NHL, but far from a finished product or a sure thing. Joseph Wall is looking like he's flaming out, and Ian Scott, I think they've cut him loose.
Really?
There's not a lot of goal there. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember.
I didn't see anyone being cut loose, but I mean, I was really high on Ian Scott. I got to see him with the Prince Albert Raiders here, and I really had high hopes for him. But the injuries they just keep piling up. Guy, he can't stay healthy enough to play.
He might be in the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken. But
that's Petrozelli.
Right.
That's another guy that I think the Leafs want to keep an eye on too, with Petrozelli.
Yeah. But I don't know how familiar you guys are with Dryden McKay. He's a little undersized, so that's a big knock on him. He's less than, I think he's like maybe just 6 feet tall, which is really short by NHL standards these days. But he had some like Hall of Fame stats, like all-time great stats while playing in the NCAA. Look up his stats; they're eye-popping. He had a bit of an unfortunate situation after he won the Hobey Baker. That he tested positive for a banned substance, a performance-enhancing substance. But it turns out that what could have been a very long ban ended up being just a 6-month, the minimum, because I think that he was able to prove that it was a non-listed ingredient on something that he was using. So he had no idea, which is just kind of a raw deal. But it'll be really interesting to see once he's able to start playing for the Marlies, what he can do at the pro level. I'm really keen to watch him.
Yeah, it might be something where he can battle, and size is a thing, but at the same time, I don't know, man. Some players just find a way to get it done. It's happened across the NHL for many different guys, like Marty St. Louis, Johnny Gaudreau, just smaller players. But now, who knows? Maybe he might be just the next one to come along and just do it in net. And I'd love to see it. I would.
Worked out okay for Alan Bester.
Yeah, there's a story for everything, right? Everyone just have to wait. I want to ask you, Matthew Knies. Obviously, we'll get to this guy right here. Everybody's excited about him. I've heard that he's happy to be a Leaf. Just felt like he owed it to the school to go for one more year. Wanted to ride that out. Do you see him signing with the Toronto Maple Leafs? Is this a guy Leafs fans should really start to put their rally caps around and get excited about? Or is this something that we may be just watching another team get a great player? Because obviously you look at the Adam Foxes of the world and different players who have decided to take their 4 years and move elsewhere. Is that what we're seeing with Matthew Knies? Or is this just simply what has been put out there? He's going for his last year and he's going to sign with the Leafs and jump in on a playoff run.
Well, I mean, again, this is a player who I don't know him personally, so I wouldn't have any insight on that. But what I would say is, he's only got 1 year of NCAA under his belt. So you got 4 years to go before you become an unrestricted free agent. So, he's got a lot of time before they need to worry about losing him as a UFA. He had a really great season with the Golden Gophers. They made it to the Frozen Four. I think he's got some unfinished business there, which is why I think he's interested in going back to college. And, good on him for maybe identifying that now is not the right time for him to sign in and go to the Leafs. Maybe he's not 100% convinced that he's got a clear-cut path into an immediate top six role with them. The Leafs have a pretty good roster, man. Like, who's he going to knock out of their top six? I'm not saying that he can't, but it's certainly not a slam dunk. So for him going back and getting another year of college hockey development under his belt, that's not going to hurt at all. The money will come. He'll make his money. That's not a problem. So I don't really have a problem with this. Now, should Leaf fans be excited about him? Yeah, absolutely, man. I think he is one of the best prospects outside of the NHL. Watching him in the NCAA, specifically the Frozen Four tournament, I was very, very impressed. He was a game changer. He was scoring huge, timely goals, and he's making plays, and he was dominating the puck often. And NCAA is pretty close to a pro league. You've got some guys in there in an age range of like 18 to 24 or whatever it is. So they're bigger and they're stronger and they're faster than junior players. So it's not like he's dominating the OHL here. He's playing against men, and he's got great size. He's got great hands. He can control the puck in close, in tight, moves really well. He's got a killer shot. He's a player who can impact the game in a lot of ways, plays with a bit of a physical edge as well. Whatever team he plays for in the NHL, I really hope it's the Leafs. The fan base is going to love him.
No, I can't wait. I do think that he may have a very good possibility of playing with John Tavares and Willie Nylander when he does come. That was what was rumored, when they went to him, I guess, flew over to meet him and said, this might be the path for you here. Obviously he decided to do what he's going to do. But, I mean, that's what the Leafs need, somebody with his ilk. And, I know it's a lot of heat and a lot of pressure to put on a young guy coming in. But at the same time, we put that kind of pressure on Matthews and Nylander and Marner and Riley. Everyone who stepped into a Leafs uniform instantly assumes that pressure and that position to be put in. Do you see his game translating well to the NHL level right off the bat? Or is he a guy that may have to take a little bit of steps maybe in the AHL just to bring his game along a little bit?
I think that's why he's gone back to NCAA. Yeah, he'd rather play in the NCAA than the American Hockey League. And I think when he graduates from college hockey, I think it's going to be straight into the NHL.
Okay, that's perfect. That is perfect for Leaf fans. I'm excited for him. I mean, you look at that pick. If you were to redraft last year's draft and have to pick Matthew Knies, would he be in the first round for you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. Okay. No, I just want to know because You look at a couple of picks. Even Nick Robertson was the same way, right? A lot of people. I mean, so far it hasn't translated to the NHL yet, but I think he will get a fair shake this year to try to at least crack that roster. What do you think on Robertson? What do you think the path is there? Is he starting to maybe flame a little bit here, or are we just being too impatient with a young guy?
I think some injuries really derailed his momentum, right? Like he came in, played a playoff round with the Leafs, scored some goals, looked like he was going to have no problem fitting in. And then the following season in training camp or rookie camp or preseason, whatever it was, I think he broke his leg or something like that.
Yeah, snapped it.
Yeah, and missed a couple months. So he's had a couple injuries. So could be a bit of a Band-Aid boy concern there where if you can't stay healthy long enough to stay in the roster, that could be a problem. But, assuming the injury woes are behind him, like a broken leg is not what you would consider to be a chronic injury, right? It's not a bad.
Yeah,
it's not
not snapping it every 2 weeks.
Right. So, let's say, for example, then injuries doesn't have any more major injuries in the next couple of seasons. I think he's an NHL player. He's got better speed and better skating than his brother. Maybe not quite as good offensive vision or shot as Jason Robertson. But Jason Robertson didn't have the pedigree that he's played into. Came out of the OHL. He was a pretty good junior scorer, led the OHL in scoring, but he wasn't a first round pick and he wasn't, everybody's radar. And then all of a sudden he gets an opportunity in the NHL and he just never looked back.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that Nick's going to have the same sort of success. I don't think he's going to score back-to-back hat tricks at any point in his career necessarily. Not too many players pull that feat off. That's pretty good. But you know what? If he makes the Leafs top 6, who's he playing with? It's going to be good, whoever the answer is, right? And he's the kind of player that if he's not in your top 6, I'm not sure he's on your roster. So that's the challenge with Nick is can he make the Leafs top 6? If he can't, he'll play on another team. I'm sure they'll find a trade bait commodity for him and turn that into a draft pick or package him with another player or whatever. I think he's an NHL player. I think he's got 20, 30 goal kind of upside on him, probably 30 if he's playing with the Leafs, right? If he's playing with Tavares or Matthews and has another like a Nylander or a Marner on the other side, it's hard not to score with those guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I did a Leafs top 10 prospect rankings for NHL trade rumors. Nick Robertson was my number 1 and Matthew Knies was my number 2.
Well, I'm excited to hear that. Obviously, a lot of Leaf fans wondering about, obviously, Mr. Nick Robertson. And the Leafs are going to need some cheap talent to start filling out that roster. I mean,
Exactly.
you're only going to have to pay more here soon for the Austin Matthews and the Mitch Marners and the Willie Nylanders. So it's only going to get harder from here on out. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the draft this week. Where can everyone find your work, Peter? Where can they find what you're doing? If they haven't already, I'm sure they have. But where can they find you?
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is Farling, Pharling, and my other Twitter handle is for the Dobber Prospects Radio, DPR_show, and you can find all the things I do on Dobber Prospects and NHL trade rumors.
We will make sure to tag you out of the living world on every single thing we put out about this show, so everyone will know where you are. Before we let you go, I want to get your final consensus. Is Shane Wright going number 1 overall in the first round?
Well, he's number 1 on my list. I can't tell you what Montreal's going to do, but if my phone rang today and said, "Hey, Pete, we'd like to offer you the job as the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens," I'd say yes, I accept, and I would also draft Shane Wright number 1. That's what I would do.
There you go.
There you go. I thought you'd say you'd trade that pick to the Toronto Maple Leafs for something, bag of bucks, and then draft Shane Wright to the Leafs. But, hey, I guess you want your career to keep going.
Yeah. Self-preservation would kick in there.
Yeah. So, well, Peter, it's been awesome to have you on. Thank you very much, everyone. This is Offside's number 2 show right here for the draft coming up, the second one, the specials. This is Peter Harling, and this is Offside Hockey Talk, where hockey comes to talk.